actually for show participants. We are looking for business owners, marketing leaders, sales leaders, HR professionals, people, maybe even if you're searching for a job, that's okay too.
Welcome to the Howie and Beastmode podcast, where we discuss all things business, including growth, strategy, and execution, as well as personal and professional development. Let's join Howie and Beastmode in conversation.
If I trust God, then I have the strength to be honest. And you can lead with just the honesty without the underpinnings. You have to have some foundation, I think, to that. Like, why would you be honest? Like, why? Like, why not get away with it? You know, you're gonna get away with it. Jordan B. Peterson says, though, in his clinical practice, he's never seen someone get away with it. Never.
Really?
Yeah, dishonesty always finds a way back to get him, to bite him, which is really interesting.
Well, I mean,
and Jesus, or who was
Bible's
it?
clear on that what you put in the darkness will come to light.
Be sure your sins will find you out, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm down.
Yeah.
I think it's good. I think it's great. I think we should go. We should rock.
I'm ready. We're already rolling.
Oh, are we?
Yeah.
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
What's up, Beastmode?
Hey, Howie. Not a whole lot. Just
I'm so proud of you. You really, really, really care about people. And, you really do. You like to, no matter what, you like to help others. And I really appreciate that about you, man.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I do what I can.
Well, are you going to go live on the medias too?
Yeah, I'm getting there. I just figured we can just
wrap. Let's just wrap. Okay. Well, you had a topic that was pretty cool. And although I think it has aspects to Christian spirituality, and frankly, many faiths, I think, honestly, have this too, but it also just has such practical ramifications. And that was what's the general idea of this topic?
Yeah, and it comes from a scripture out of James 5, and it talks about letting your yes be yes and your no be no. And I think even outside of the Christian world or realm, you've heard that in some kind of a spectrum. It's really talking about, and before we jumped on it and started recording things like that, we read it a couple of different ways, and it really talks about not adding anything to your words. So whatever is truthful, just speak the truth. You don't need to add any fluff. You don't need to add any cherries on top. It is what it is, and that should be that's what's making a sale. That's what's getting the point across. I mean, that's what's digging up in my heart whenever we're talking about this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people have a lot of stresses that they deal with at work, like when they make a mistake and they're afraid of getting in trouble. There's a temptation to hide something or lie about something. Or if they're in sales and they're working, or even in marketing, and they're trying to convince customers that their products are worth investment, or their service are worth investment, there's a temptation to lie.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, though, the problem is this, I'll give you some of the downside. So I know somebody who works at American Airlines, and a few years ago, they had a whole campaign around more room throughout coach. What that meant was that all of the seats in coach had extended leg room, and it was so nice because, as you know, flying on an airplane is tough because you're pretty cramped. And so that front to back space is one area that American Airlines decided to go ahead and extend that leg room. And it was so nice. And I was just so happy. But I found that sometime later, maybe it was a year and a half later, I don't know, the seats were back. And so I asked my friend who works at that airline.
Yeah.
I asked him, what happened? You guys had more room throughout coach, and that was like this big, huge campaign. And then now you don't. And his answer was very corporate. And it was, well, we got feedback from people that they wanted more flight choices And so they prioritize that over more room.
Mm.
It's like this fake, disgusting, and I will never forget it. It's probably been 15 years since that conversation, and it tainted how I think about that person. And I try not to, and it's not like I really resent them, but it's hard not to link that drippingly dishonest comment, even though the corporation came up with this particular airline. So that consequences that are very, very memorable from being dishonest. So that's kind of the negative side. But I'm sure we all have cases as well where people did the right thing when it was hard. And what a sweet memory those times are as well. I'll try to think of one, maybe you have one, but a time where it was hard to tell the truth and someone did, those are very, very memorable, especially if they have something to lose.
Yeah. I mean, just think of in a moment, whenever, and I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and it talked about having the courage to speak the truth. That's something that the podcaster, was making a proclamation that this generation as a whole is lacking the courage to speak the truth. Speak the truth in common conversation. Tell somebody the truth and whatever it is. Tell a friend exactly what it is, let alone in business, to tell a client that this idea, this service isn't a good fit for you, that this upgrade that you're demanding that we give you is not a good fit, and that you're going to be unhappy in 3 months, and I'm trying to help you. We don't have that courage, unfortunately. And I know for me, that's part of the reason why I wanted out of the corporate world, because that was stirring in my gut that I couldn't deal with anymore. I couldn't deal with not having the courage for fear of repercussions that would come at me, to be able to speak truth like that. So,
yeah.
Same with you?
Yeah, I mean, it is hard. Like, to be honest, the company that I work for right now is kind of known for culture and integrity, and it really flows from the CEO and on down. And so I've been really enjoying the fact that I feel a little bit of a climate where there's space to share bad news and it's okay, or whatever it may be, and there's not like a out to get you climate, right?
Yeah.
And so I really like that. And I think it is harder when you don't work in a super great culture like you're talking about.
Yeah.
And that, you have to kind of count on that. The place that you get a job, if anybody's in the workforce, may not have a great culture. And so you may have to deal with that kind of pressure. And so ultimately you're going to have to find another reason. You're not going to be able to find the reason that, it's just good culture all the time.
Yeah.
You may have to bring culture with you. And that's kind of a business missionary, right? And we're not talking about just Christianity on the podcast, but there is an aspect, whether you are coming from Judaism or Christianity or nothing, there's an aspect where you may have to shine your light. You may have to stand against the tide and have a reason that you're doing that in spite of a negative culture. So I do empathize with what you're talking about for sure. And if it's bad enough, people do leave, and that's an option. Of course, it's better to find a job when you have a job. So timing of that is controllable, if as long as you have a job, versus having someone walk you out the door. But I mean, I'm so sympathetic to what you're saying. And I'm sure there's a ton of listeners who have those cultures that are terrible.
What do you do in times, or have you ever been in a situation where you didn't have the backing, you didn't have the support to be able to be honest with the customer and be able to tell a superior or tell somebody, I had to let this deal go. It wasn't a good fit for us, even though, there would have been a closed deal and there would have been the money up front. It would have been headache on the back, and you got to trust me. Have you been there before? I've been there the negative way.
Have you been? You have been?
Did it?
Yeah, I can't remember a time when management pushed me specifically to be dishonest to a customer. I have been a party to pretty bad dishonesty where I had to report it a couple times. I don't know if anything ever happened from that, but I reported it. And that was super uncomfortable and scary to do that, honestly. But I've been more tempted locally by pressure. So what happens is beast mode, sometimes they pressure you to do the wrong thing, but sometimes they just pressure you, period. And there is no understanding and there's no compassion and there's no situational awareness. They don't care. They want XYZ to happen. And it's extreme pressure. And then you're in a situation where you feel pressure to make a bad decision to make the outcome that they want, right? Because you're going to be dead without it, right? They're going to let you go, or they're going to make your life terrible or whatever. And so that's why I said you kind of have to be your own missionary. You kind of have to be your own light, in that situation and make that hard choice. I'll tell you too, I do have a story, but let me flip it back to you in case you have any supplementals.
Yeah. Well, I was curious about, there is the aspect of a superior manager or boss or somebody putting that pressure on you, but there's also just that internal pressure, of, I don't want to do this, but I got to pay my bills. I don't want to do this, but I don't want to have to answer to a spouse, or, I have kids and this, that, and the other. And so you make the difficult decision in the moment, an integrity decision of, I know that I should, and whether it's, I know that I should give more information. And if I gave this information, it would probably make the deal crumble. But if I withhold it, maybe it won't. Or it's, I'm fluffing this information up, but I know I'm a part of a Rotary Club, the Irving Las Vegas Rotary Club. And one of the things we say at the end of every meeting is we have a 4-way test. And one of the things that's in the 4-way test of business is it the truth? Is what I'm telling you, is it the truth? And is it all the truth? It's not the truth if you're holding back some of it. Partial truth isn't the truth, And so that's what it's making me think of.
I wish it was easy, and I wish, people didn't have consequences, but there are consequences to these things for sure.
Yeah.
You may lose the deal. Absolutely. I would say, if you think you're going to lose the deal because you are telling the truth and all that, just make sure that they understand, here's the truth. Here's the downside of, like, this vehicle doesn't have the backup camera that you're wanting. It is the last one I have, and I can't get any more. It does have the backup sensor. Try to find a creative way. Like, we can have one installed for $1,000 and I'll split it with you. Try to find a creative way to deliver the bad news, but to find a way to still make that happen. And that's what I'll kind of move into now, is kind of two things. I'll tell you the story second and the idea first. And the idea is that the pressure of having to, the constraint, okay? So the box, by living in the box and saying, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna deceive, by forcing yourself to live in the box, it actually forces more creativity and mental growth than if you can just have the box be anywhere. Because you're having to think in a smaller creative space. And so here it's actually interesting. There is a website, and I didn't pull it up before this, but apparently it's like haikus. You know what a haiku is? It's like a special type of poem. Yeah. It's like Asian. There's a haiku website apparently, or at least there was a few years ago, just on spam, like the product spam.
Okay.
Not the mail, like not email, but like on the canned meat.
The guy's calling me.
Yeah, not that. And so it's a whole website, and apparently there's tons and tons of haikus out there. You think about it, it's like a certain amount of syllables, like, I don't know if it's like 575 or 353, I don't know, whatever it is, whatever a haiku is. I'll have to look it up. It's been too long. But you'd be surprised how many haikus about spam are on this website. And yet they're having to think about it. The topic is canned meat, right?
Yeah.
One type of canned meat, one brand of canned meat, actually. And it also has to fit within the constraints of a haiku, which has a very specific structure. And yet there's apparently, I don't have it in front of me, so I'm not going to say, but apparently like thousands, like a lot of haikus out there. So it's kind of funny, right? So it's a humorous thing, but also shows you that under pressure, there's a lot of creative potential available. So what happens is that people who lie, sometimes it's not like there's an actual gun to your head. I might understand that, or to a loved one. I really might understand that if there was an actual gun to your head or something physical like that. But outside of like those very never, like wartime almost, cases, outside of that, there really is the opportunity to be creative in within those restraints. But people don't, because they don't make the pre-made decision to be honest, they don't have the box to live in. And if you don't have the box to live in, then you're basically, your mind sprawls into all these cases of lies that you then have to keep track of, and you don't grow. And I'm saying if you stay in the box, you grow. And if you go outside of the box and you lie, then you will not grow. The story I have is just very simple, which is that I was at my last company, and myself and my sales rep were on the phone with a bank somewhere in the Northeast, large one, famous one. And our product didn't do X, Y, and Z that they wanted to. And we could see it coming on the call. We could see they're about to ask that. And we knew they needed it. And we knew we didn't do it. And blah, 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 blah. So the temptation is, this deal is going south. The temptation is, what are we going to do? And so, there's that friction, and there's that moment where you're having to fight with that, and in the end, we decided to go ahead and share and put ourselves in the box of truth. And we were able to get creative and overcome that. So it's not like I can talk about this subject and not have any stories and wounds. And by the way, that deal kind of did go on pause, but it wasn't for that reason. But I found out a few weeks ago, it's actually back. And it's a decent discussion with that organization. So, still not closed, but point is, it didn't kill us. We got to keep our integrity. We get to feel good. And they got to feel good about us too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I did a short video today, and I think you saw it, about boundaries. Did you see that thing?
I don't really watch a lot of, actually, I don't watch any videos during work hours.
Yeah.
But I did like it.
Okay. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, the video was on boundaries are good. And just like your example, so if I have a truth boundary that says I'm going to, whatever I'm saying, I want to keep it in the truth boundary. And some people are going to say, you're confining what I can say. And I don't like that. There's a whole possibility of non-truths that I want to have in my pocket, just in case. And from a plausibility or from a logical standpoint, you're thinking that sounds like you're having twice as many options, right? When you just think about, I'm having one option or two, and that's not the truth. The truth is that if I have a boundary that says I'm going to speak the truth, right? And you're thinking about, well, if I have another option, that means that I have double the capacity. And my example was, if you take a fish and you say your boundary is you get to live in the water, and the fish says, well, I want to be on land, you're confining me to the ocean. No, I'm not confining you, I'm saving you by leaving you in the ocean. And so that boundary is a positive thing. It's a good thing for you. And if I remove that boundary and said, fish, go onto the land, you're going to die. And so it's a good thing that you have a boundary.
Wow, that's really cool. That's
Thank
really
you.
good. Yeah, I love that. Never heard that before. Love that.
Well, now you don't have to go listen to it. I just told you.
I got a personal delivery.
Yeah.
I'll like it again. I'll like it again.
Thank you.
Or I'll turn it to applause.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's really smart. I hadn't thought of the fact that box that we're trying to make you live in, is actually for your good, and for your protection. That's actually interesting.
Yeah.
It's good. So you have protection by being honest. You have long-term reputation instead of the airline that I mentioned that I can't forget.
Yeah.
Feel very lied to, very manipulated to, and the friend who delivered that. It's sad because it's a good person, but it's not like I wouldn't be their friend, but I remember that. It sucks. I don't want to remember that. It's terrible.
Yeah.
But they were the obvious voice of a lie. So yeah, I don't know. I think maybe let's talk and help the people a little bit think about what are some, how do we go into those situations with the strength,
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah. What's some application type deals that we can work with? I think the first one is just having that as a boundary, like we were talking about.
Yeah, that's good.
And again, you have the boundary with the understanding that this boundary brings life.
Mm-hmm.
If I just keep everything in the truth side, then it's going to bring life. And it doesn't mean there's not repercussions of speaking truth, because there is, to a deal or whatever. There is, just like you said.
Yeah, I think another one that I'll give you is that when there's a book called To Sell Is Human by Daniel Pink, which I recommend pretty highly, and I want to reread it myself even, but there's something there about when somebody in sales or a company or whatever gives the bad news, it actually makes them more attractive. And there's something with that. There's something like when you give bad news, it makes them more attractive than just all good news. Like if you just see like, here's good news, good news, good news. We do all this, and it's like all this perfect. There's something, he said, there's something psychologically about when you insert something bad in there, like, well, we don't do this. But so just heads up, we don't do this. Just want to let you know, blah, 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 blah. Here's the good news, And so there's something endearing about that. The other thing I'll say is, we talked sometimes on this show, we talk to people about cold calling and kind of encouraging outbound selling effort and that kind of, proactive work, which is scary for sure. But what we've told people before, I think, is that, you just have to start. You just have to do it. You just have to kind of break that ice. And I think honesty is the same thing. Like if you haven't been honest and you do what Beastmode's saying and you say, listen, I'm going to stay in the box of honesty. I'm going to stay within those borders. If you make that pre-made decision and you just try the first one, the first time you mess up and your boss is asking you, just tell them the truth and just make the choice to do one. Just start with one. It's almost like, when I gave up smoking was really hard, back in the day, but it's like, okay, well, I'm going to like say no this first time, and it's like, that's really hard. And it was pretty hard for 3 days. And that was very hard for 3 weeks. And for 3 months, I still felt it. And for a year, I still felt it. And after, a little bit longer, it got better. But I think there's a little bit of that habit of like a habit of good to sort of like replace that habit of bad. So, and also I think one more thing, I'm sorry, I'm talking too much. I want to flip it back to you. The only thing I will say is I think you and I would both agree, these people have got to forgive themselves as well.
Yeah.
Let's forget the past. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm telling you that I've done this in the past where I've had that moment where I knew I should have just been completely honest, or I knew that I should have not withheld things. And just, I have no idea if it would have lost the deal or not. I chose not to do it. And I know it ate me up. And that's part of the reason why I got out, like I said. But I know that it bothers me. It bothers me to the point that I still think about it. But again, like you said, yes, I need to let it go, but yes, it needs to motivate me to do better today. But truth isn't always bad either. So I want to clear that up. If I'm just sharing truth, it doesn't mean that I'm just sharing bad news, all over the place. Just speaking the truth in whatever the situation is, can be positive. If somebody's got spinach in their teeth, speaking the truth and informing that person, hey, son, I want to be a good friend. You got spinach in your teeth before you go into this meeting. Yeah. That still takes courage. You don't want to be, whatever, but it still does, But I think kind of my last point, and then I'll let you wrap it up, is if you can have one person, it doesn't have to be on site at your job. If you could just have one person that whenever you're in a moment like this, that you can just send a touch to. Hey, I'm in an opportunity. I have the opportunity to share the whole truth, nothing but the truth. And I just need somebody on my side that's got my back regardless, because sometimes your boss doesn't have your back. They're not going to. Or sometimes your peers are going to be mad because there was a team quota and you messed it up, you know. But having somebody, whether it's a spouse, a friend, a parent, that you can just say, hey, I'm about to do this. I just need you on my team. Having somebody like that, I think, is important as well.
Good. It's really good. I don't have a lot to add. I'm really glad you brought up the point that it's not like telling the truth is always going to be hard because there's always something negative.
No.
So yeah, that was really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, I think people, the problem is, you know, one of the things like you tell your boss bad news or something, which I've been faced with before. The thing about it is at least they can do something. At least they're aware of it versus you hiding it from them, and it's worse, or they
Yeah.
don't know. Like they can't, for example, they can't change the forecast because you didn't tell them about that deal that's going south, or whatever it may be. So you want to really empower those above you with the truth, even if it's bad news. And I think you'll find that they'll recognize. I think usually if it is bad news, I think they will recognize that wasn't easy to share. So you might actually, it'd be weird, but it could be that you actually help yourself.
Yeah.
When they're like, wow, this person is courageous.
Yeah. Totally. I'm right there with you. You never know what the outcome is. And honestly, the fear is in the outcome. We don't know what the outcome is going to be. And so
Yeah.
we're scared to share too much, or we're scared to share the whole truth because of the outcome, whenever you have no idea. And there's only one way to find out.
I think you want to live, you know, the problem is this, like you know, Jordan B. Peterson says that in his clinical practice, he's never seen somebody who made those dishonest choices have it not come back on them. Never once, not once. And you know, so that's one thing that he says. The other thing that he says is you're actually warping your own decision-making engine in your brain. You're tricking yourself, and you're actually wrecking your decision because you're programming yourself to communicate a lie and to, you know, believe something that's not true. So
Yeah.
you're actually wrecking your own decision-making capability by not being, not speaking the truth in that way. So yeah, that's all I had for you though.
All right. Well, that's great. So we're going to wrap things up today. Appreciate you, Howie. And we'll see you guys next week.
All right. See you then.